Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab on the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist. Joined today by John Supowitz at I'm That Soupy. I don't know why I have such a hard time getting that one open. Thanks for joining me, John. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, man. It is finally fantasy football season. I just got done with my Scott Fishbowl draft. Training camps start next week. We're finally into the best part of the year.
I'm only in the ninth or 10th round of mine.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of when everyone starts to flock back. I don't know if I know there's always the dynasty degenerates who are around 24/7, 365, but I feel like Scott Fishbowl draft somehow, despite the fact that it's mostly the degenerates, it's not like it's the casuals playing in Scott Fish, but
Yeah.
I feel like that always is when it ramps up. We were even noticing that with our views, Well, one of the guys said on TikTok, "Hey, we've got like a whole bunch of new followers this week, and we haven't published a video." And I said, "The casuals are all flocking back, so it's that time of year, I guess."
Exactly. It is that time of year, but it's the best time of year because we're
Yeah,
all of our fantasy teams are 0-0, so
yeah.
we all have a chance.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately been a theme here with some of the schedule projections. Every team is still good, so you need 12 wins to make the playoffs, apparently. So there's everyone's still very hopeful. We haven't gotten into that week one where I'm quitting at halftime yet and rage quitting and throwing things. So, give it time. We'll get there. So.
Yep,
All
definitely.
right. Well, before we get into it, you want to take a second to plug everything? Tell everyone where they can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me at fantasypros.com. I'll be doing a lot of stuff during the season. And if you're into sports betting, check out Driving the Line weekdays, 10 a.m. on YouTube. Look up Driving the Line on YouTube.
Love it. All right, let's get into the New York Giants. Starting off with the QB room. Interesting one here. We've got a make it or break it year for Daniel Jones. After a great year, I think it was QB 7-8 the year before.
It's
He
QB
fell to
9. QB 9 that year. Yeah.
fell to 42, going as QB
Yeah.
27, backed up by Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito. Drew Lock, good God, I didn't even realize that till I read it. But Daniel Jones is actually someone I'm targeting in a lot of drafts because I think we've swung too far and the hatred's gone too far, and I think he's a value. He was actually who I was targeting. I started SFB with Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray. So my plan was to go Daniel Jones late as one of the, he was available late, and he's still available in my league. The problem is he has a conflicting bye week, so I had to pivot, and I went with Geno instead. But I think Daniel Jones is a pretty damn good late round target, especially in Scott Fishbowl, where the rushing yards for a QB is almost as valuable as his passing yards. But what do you think of the QB room here?
I mean, there's just so much turmoil in the Giants QB room because, again, this is a make or break year for Daniel Jones. Even though he did get that big contract last year, they can cut him and they could save $22 million in the cap hit.
Not a lot of guaranteed money in it.
Yeah, nope,
Yeah.
all done. So I think that's the big thing. He has to have the year that he had in 2022. And there's a lot of factors. Can he stay healthy? That's been the big problem in his career. He's not able to stay healthy. Now he's coming off a torn ACL. How is that going to affect him in the running game, which is his most important aspect? And for me, the biggest thing is going to be that offensive line. The Giants have made some big moves in the offensive line. They got John Runyon from the Packers, an incredible right guard, and they got Jermaine Illuminor from Las Vegas. But here's the problem. He is a right tackle, but they're moving him to the left side because Evan Neal refuses to move to the left side. So once again, Evan Neal is going to be at the right tackle. It's kind of just mind-blowing because he's been so terrible over the last couple of years. Same thing. He's been injured and just completely inefficient. So I think taking Daniel Jones where he is right now, you're saying QB 27, 21?
Yeah.
I think if you could get him at that position, at that point, I would say take a chance on him. I'm only taking a chance on him as my QB2 in a 1 QB league. Same thing, or my QB3 in a 2 QB league. Because if if he can't get the run game going, he doesn't have the arm to
No.
sort of save himself. So he's only averaged about 6 air yards in his career. So that's the most important part.
Where do you think he settles in here? Can he get up to a high end QB2, low end QB2? Is he just Derek Carr with maybe a little more rushing upside, or
I think he can. He can get up to a high Q. We've seen it. He finishes a QB9 a couple of years ago in the first year of Brian Daboll's offense. Brian Daboll, of course, coming from Buffalo, you see what he did with Josh Allen. Everyone thought it was crazy that they took Josh Allen with the number 9 pick because this guy from Wyoming had no arm. He was a mobile quarterback. That's all he was. But look what he has progressed into, and a lot had to do with Brian Daboll's offense, and we saw that he did that with Daniel Jones. And I think it's just going to be a very, very quick hook for him. It could be because Drew Lock, he's not just a young guy with no experience. He has starting experience in Denver. He started a couple games last year in Seattle. So I wouldn't be surprised if the first few weeks the Giants are maybe 2-4, and maybe if they're still close in the NFC East, possibly a move. But again, there's a lot on the line for Daniel Jones because if he doesn't prove himself this year, he's going to have to find himself a new home next year.
You think it's Lock over DeVito? I know DeVito kind of had his Josh Dobbs, going where he was good for 3 or 4 games at one point and then sucked after that. You think it's Lock?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Something Tommy DeVito would have to, again, in training camp, sort of play the way he did.
Yeah.
In that when he was Tommy Cutlets, in order to go jump over someone like Drew Lock, who again is an experienced veteran quarterback who has starting experience.
Not Giants related at all, but are your notifications blowing up too? Did you see it yet?
Nope, I am on Do Not Disturb.
Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison arrested for drunk driving.
Oh my God.
We're going to do this again all off season long.
I love Jordan Addison too. Like he, coming out of UFC, he was one of my favorites. And a lot of people were upset that they brought him in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson. I said, that's going to help him completely. And you saw when Justin Jefferson was hurt, what Addison did. Now we're going to see what happens with that whole situation.
Does the NFLPA, how hard is it to just the first day call a freaking Uber? How hard
exactly.
Is it? Call the team. We'll send a limo. I'm sure there's someone who could. I don't get it.
I think with the NFL, you can get free Ubers. I think they have something. I think they do. I don't quote me on it, but I think they do.
I imagine you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll get back to the Giants. I got a whole bunch of notifications and I looked and said, what is this? That's what it is. Next, we got a running back room that I find kind of interesting. We've got several young running backs here that I've had various levels of interest in, and the most boring kind of RB1 in fantasy football. Devin Singletary finished as RB30 last year, going as 32 this year. I think he's a sneaky value. Tyrone Tracy I have quite a bit of. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. And if Singletary can't keep it going here, I think he's a sneaky sleeper. I liked Corbin at one point. I liked Eric Gray. I don't know what to make of this field or backfield. Could be 4 players on the field. Sure. Could be Devin Singletary all to himself. I don't know. What do you think?
So Devin Singletary's really never been like the RB1 300 touch guy. It's when he was in Buffalo with Brian Daboll. I think that's a big reason why they brought him over, for that familiarity. Zach Moss was with him. And now last year with Houston, Dameon Pierce started as the RB1, and Singletary kind of jumped over him as that year progressed. But it's still, I looked at a lot of the snap shares. It was still, Singletary was still in the high, or Pierce was still in the high 40s when it came to snap percentage. So Singletary never really dominated the backfield. So I love Devin Singletary. I picked him up in Scott Fishbowl. I have picked him up the last couple of years just because I love, he's a great runner. And he can be used in passing situations. And he's really not that much different, if you guys could believe it, than Saquon Barkley mainly because Devin Singletary doesn't get hurt. He only has in his career, mind you, since 2022, only 4 less rushing touchdowns, 22 less receiving yards, and only point 0.3 less yards per reception than Saquon Barkley. So you're getting the same thing from Saquon Barkley, especially if Singletary can stay healthy. But again, I don't think he's going to get that 65% snap share, 70%. If I'm looking at someone else to take, and I tried to get him, I kind of fudged up on getting him in the Scott Fishbowl. Tyrone Tracy. I watched a lot of his tape, spent a little time in Iowa. But again, when you're in Iowa, you can somewhat play an offense in Iowa. You're absolutely the most incredible player ever because Iowa has been the worst offense in college football the last few years. And then he transferred over to Purdue. He played a lot. He played with Aiden O'Connor a couple years ago, but last year, without him, they were going a lot of run heavy, and he showed off a lot of his speed. He can cut through the line of scrimmage. And same thing, he could be used in the passing game. So he's not that much different from Devin Singletary. So I do believe that Singletary is the guy you're going to want to take. But if you miss out on Singletary, or if you're looking for a handcuff, yeah, I'm looking at Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, Singletary. I was just looking while you were talking there, and I missed out on Singletary. He went in the 8th round, beginning of the 8th round. He went one pick before me, and then I hope no. Oh, actually, this is recorded, so we're good. I am 2 picks away, and my current pick for this, if he doesn't go in the next 2 picks, it's going to be Tyrone Tracy in the 13th.
I would, yeah. Definitely.
I was hoping to wait. I know he's been going in the 15th. I was planning on taking him in the 14th, but I want to go kicker with my next pick. So I said, screw it. I'm going to secure Tracy here because I don't think he gets back to me in the 15th, even though that's his ADP in Scott Fishbowl. So
yeah, I'm
hoping to secure him here in 2 picks. I would have loved it if I could have handcuffed him, like you said, to Singletary, but that did not happen for me. Move on here to the wide receivers. We've got the rookie Malik Neighbors going as wide receiver 26, and then kind of a hodgepodge of guys behind him. Wan'Dale Robinson, who's been unhealthy, I guess would be the way to describe him. I always thought he had really good potential, though. Jalen Hyatt, the speedster. Darius Slayton feels like he's been there forever, despite the fact that Isaiah McKenzie's older. Isaiah Hodgins, who had some brief periods of usefulness. Allen Robinson, speaking of old, good Lord, I didn't know where he was even playing. Lawrence Cager and Miles Boykin. So they've got some real young players here, and I hope that's who they go with. And they've got some dead weight here. What do you think? I mean, obviously the upside is with Neighbors, but what do you think all around?
I 100% the upside is going to be with Neighbors because I think he's going to get 150, maybe. He's going to get such a high percentage of those targets. That's what they brought him in for, just to try to give Daniel Jones some sort of pass catcher, because a lot of it, they've had decent guys, but it's been a lot of injuries, a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of blown money, aka Kenny Galladay. So for me, it's Neighbors, and then you're kind of just gonna see what else works. If I had to pick a Y to Neighbors X, I would go with Darius Slayton, and I think in the Z, the slot is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson, which I think that'll play pretty well because again, Daniel Jones is not a deep passer. He's not a guy who's going to go vertical. So I think a lot of short routes will go to Robinson. So that's why I would sort of favor him in PPR. And that's why I always thought that the Jalen Hyatt pick was kind of weird to me, just because he's mainly a vertical guy, a guy who's going to get that separation from the corner through a vertical route, and they didn't use it much last year. I think it had a lot to do with Jones being hurt for most of the season, but also that's just not what the Giants want to do. They're not going to be a vertical type of offense. It's just not who they are. And that's why I don't feel Hyatt. I don't feel, Hodgins had his time. I think no, he's going to get buried in that wide receiver depth chart. So I don't know if he'll have much of a role this year. McKenzie, another guy. I think McKenzie's going to be used a lot in special teams. He returned kicks and punts. I think he'll be used possibly in that scenario. Allen Robinson is just going to be a guy that they brought in as a veteran to talk up a lot of these young guys and teach a lot of these young guys. So I actually do like that move in that sense. But for this wide receiver room, I think the only person you really could sort of be confident in taking is Malik Neighbors. Yeah.
Call back to your quarterback prediction there.
Yeah.
I like Hyatt a little bit more. If you're right, and come week 4, it's Drew Lock at quarterback. Yeah. I feel like Lock has a bit more, he's not a great passer, but he's got a much better shot, I think, of consistently hitting the deep ball or at least taking deep shots for Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, if that ends up being that scenario, I would love to see Jalen Hyatt. He is. I watched a lot of him at Tennessee. He really is. Has incredible speed, great hands, a great piece in that Tennessee offense a couple years ago. But I don't think it was the right pick for the Giants. He just didn't fit in this offense.
All right, next up, the tight end room, and I'm interested to see what you think here because I have a lot of leagues where late I'm pairing these two because I liked Daniel Bellinger and I really liked Theo Johnson athletically. His production wasn't great, but we also have Jack Stoll, Chris Manhertz, and Tyree Jackson. What are your thoughts here? Like, as of now, my plan was I have 2 tight ends already, but later in the draft for SFB here, I was hoping to maybe double down and get both of them in hopes that I get the one that is the actual tight end. What's your read on the situation here between these two?
For me, I don't believe in Bellinger that much just because he's mostly been a blocking tight end. He was a mostly blocking tight end in college. And same thing before they got Darren Waller, high blocking percentage. So if I had to take a shot at somebody, it's going to be Theo Johnson. He was really good at Penn State. I liked watching him. I liked a lot of his tape. Big guy, a lot of size, decent speed. So I think he's going to sort of move into that Darren Waller role. I don't know if he's going to be a Darren Waller. I mean, because at one point Darren Waller was one of the best tight ends in the league. So this is really a tough position to sort of go by fantasy wise because you have a rookie and you have a guy who even before the tight end, that they previously had came in, he was only really used in blocking situations as a blocker. So I don't know if they're all of a sudden going to change just because of the tight end depth that they have now.
All right, moment of truth then. On this roster, based at the current ADP or rough, your rough estimate of their price, who's a player you're targeting and who's one you're avoiding on the G-men?
2 guys I already know that I do want I want Devin Singletary. I think he's going to possibly be a high-end RB2. I actually think that could be a floor for him. I think he could sneak into possibly top 15 depending on his usage. And you saw in this offense the type of usage that Saquon Barkley got. I'm not saying the skill set is Saquon Barkley, but the way he plays is exactly like they want to use a running back in that system. They want to go up the middle. They want to try to establish a run, but a guy who can efficiently catch the ball, and that is Singletary. And then for me, the most confident wide receiver I could take is Malik Neighbors. I think anybody else, to me, it's just, they could be a number 2, but I don't think this is going to be a high passing offense. They've been at, around 52 to 55% the last few years, and they don't want to put the ball in Daniel Jones's hand. If he has to make a play, he's going to do it through his legs. And so that's why at Daniel Jones, at his ADP, I would take a shot at him just because we saw he could be a top 10 quarterback when healthy, when that offense is working. So to me, one of the top 5 running quarterbacks in the league, if he stays healthy and that offensive line actually lives up to what it could possibly be because they did pick up some really good free agents at the offensive line this offseason.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see if you can get the Giants here to 13 wins. Otherwise, they're going to miss the playoffs, according to every analyst who's been on this show. I'll name the game. You tell me win or loss.
Okay.
Week 1, home to the Vikings.
I think that's going to be an interesting one just because at home with a rookie quarterback, I kind of played around with this one because I do like the Vikings defense this year, but I ultimately think the Giants can pull this one out.
Ooh, got them undefeated already. Here we go. Week 2 at Washington.
And that's another thing. It's going to possibly be Jacoby Brissett, but it also could be Jaden Daniels, another rookie quarterback. In Washington, I'll take that one as a loss, though.
All right. At Cleveland, week 3.
I love Cleveland's defense. Again, they're going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. Depending on how that offensive line works, but I'm going to take Cleveland.
Week 4, home to the Cowboys.
The way the Cowboys have had their number the last couple of years, I think they might have lost 6 straight against the Cowboys. So I'm going to take them as a loss.
Week 5 at Seattle.
They played in Seattle last year. It was a putrid of a game. I think Seattle's going to even be better this year with that new coaching staff. I love their offensive coordinator, who was the offensive coordinator at the University of Washington. I'm going to take that as another loss.
Week 6, home to the Bengals.
If Joe Burrow's healthy, if that offense is working, the defense is really good. I think that's another loss.
Week 7, home to the Eagles.
Home to the Eagles. That's a Saquon revenge game. I think he's going to have a massive game there. He is going to have, I think he could have 200 yards, 250 yards from scrimmage. I'm going to take that as a loss.
Week 8 at Pittsburgh.
Man, this one I'm trying to think about a lot just because it's not going to be the same Pittsburgh we've seen the last couple of years with Kenny Pickett. Is Russ going to be old Russ? Is Russ going to be, like he was in Seattle or like he was in Denver? But again, the Steelers have a great defense. That offensive line is going to be much better this year. I like some of the guys that they have. I'm going to go with another loss.
All right. Week 9, home to the Commanders.
I have them losing to the Commanders on the road. I'll have them winning at home against them.
There we go. Break the 7-game losing streak.
Yep.
Going into the bye, week 10, home to the Panthers.
That's going to be the Brian Burns revenge game. I think the Panthers are going to be a much better team than they were last year. You can't get any worse than they were last year because they were the worst team.
True.
I think they'll be better, but I don't think they're ready to take that next step yet. I think the Giants win this one.
All right. You've got them 3-7 going into the bye week. Coming out of it, week 12, home to the Bucks.
Bucks are really good. I mean, Baker Mayfield has proven that you give him an offense that he can work, you give him the pieces, and an offense he's comfortable with, he's really good. I think that's another loss for him. I really do.
Week 13 in Dallas.
They lose again. They can't beat Dallas. I think Dallas is probably the best team in the NFC East right now, and I just don't think the Giants are ready for them.
Week 14, they host the Saints, and some of my favorite memories as a Saints fan were New York versus New Orleans game, where it said, this is the game to avoid. There's nothing going on. And then it was like 44-42 games, and it was awesome. So obviously it's different quarterbacks, but who do you got here? Week 14 hosting New Orleans.
I hope that New Orleans could be a much better team they were last year because
they're worse.
You think they're going to be worse?
Yeah, I think they might have number 1 pick team. I think they need to tear this down, get the salary cap in order, and rebuild completely.
Then I'm going to go on so if I lose this one, that's on you. I'm going to go with the Giants winning this game.
I am completely fair. I will take the bullet on that. I don't think the Saints can beat many teams. Week 15, home to the Ravens.
One of the best defenses in the league. one of the better offenses too. Yeah, Mark Andrews will be healthy again. Lamar Jackson's the MVP. Zay Flowers, all those, and now they got Derrick Henry in the backfield. That's gonna be tough. They're gonna be the best team in the AFC, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a loss for them again.
Agreed. Week 16 at the Falcons, who are kind of a tough team to judge here.
That's what I'm thinking too. Are we gonna see Kirk Cousins of old? Are we gonna, coming off an Achilles injury is definitely tough. But I like their offensive line. They still have Bijan Robinson has the potential to be one of the best running backs in the league. I like Drake London. I like Kyle Pitts. They got better defensively. That was the main reason that they made this coaching change. They wanted to get better defensively. I think they've done it. Is this at home or away?
In Atlanta.
It's in Atlanta?
Yeah.
I think they'll pull off this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it come down to one of those like late field goals, but I'm going to give them a win in this one. I think it's going to be close. Right.
Kirk Cousins is kind of like Aaron Rodgers for me. Yeah. I don't care about the ACL injury. What is the stat you need an ACL for? It just doesn't matter. So
exactly.
Week 14, home to the Colts. Time to be determined, obviously, because it's a late season, but hosting the Colts.
I'm interested to see the Colts because I think Anthony Richardson is going to be the QB 5 at worst. I'm so up on Anthony Richardson this year. If you saw the beginning of the season before he got injured, he was one of the top fantasy QBs. So I think they'll be good. I just don't think, I don't think they're ready to take that next level for maybe another year or two. I'll take this one as a win for the Giants.
And they close it out week 18 at Philadelphia.
I don't think this is going to mean anything for the Giants, so I don't think we're going to see a lot of starters for them. I don't even think this will mean a lot for the Eagles because possibly they'll be in the playoffs, but it could be close again like it was last year with them in Dallas. I do think they're going to take another loss.
All right, and that brings them to a 6-11 record. That's good for probably the number 3 overall pick, but people are a little bit high on their teams.
I'm going to tell you, I don't care about next draft. I care about the 2026 draft because I want them to get the number 1 pick. So when Roger Goodell stands at the podium and he says, with the number 1 overall pick, the New York Giants select Arch Manning, quarterback, Texas.
Another Manning in New York.
He will save
All right,
us.
John. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for joining me. You want to take one more second to promote yourself on the way out?
Yes. Check me out on fantasypros.com. And again, if you're a sports bettor, driving the line every weekday, every single weekday, 7 days a week, driving the line 10 a.m. on YouTube.
Well, that's a wrap for the Mad Science Lab on the Fantasy Football Universe. Thank you, John, for joining me. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care and have a great night, everyone.